Audio check. Test of the audio stream. 1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2, 3. Test of the audio. 1, 2, 3.
Good evening and welcome to the March 27th business meeting of the Suffolk City Public Schools. This meeting is now called to order. We will first stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chair McGee. It's over there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, we will observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Now we will hear the mission of Suffolk Public Schools.
The mission of Suffolk Public Schools is to produce 21st century learners that will become productive citizens in the society, foster a dynamic, safe, and nurturing learning environment, partner with the school community for the benefit of students and staff, strengthen the school's division by employing the highly qualified and diverse staff, effectively and efficiently manage capital and human resources, effectively communicate to increase community investment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now it is time for the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the agenda with the adding of the discussion for spending from the school board's budget line item.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the agenda with a discussion, I'm assuming under new business, regarding school board line item budgets. Did I reflect that correctly?
Yes, as far as spending from school board line
Spending
item.
from the budget.
Yes.
Got it. You have that? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made by Board Member Riddick and seconded by Board Member Slingluff. Is there any discussion? There being none, we are ready to vote.
Board members, please vote. Board Member Dr. Brittingham.
Yes.
Board Member Fields. Board Member Jenkins.
Yes.
Board Member Riddick. Yes. Board Member Slingluff.
Yes.
Vice Chair McGee.
Yes.
Board Chair Howell.
Yes,
Motion passed.
thank you. I believe up next is reports by the superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to call to the podium Mr. Melvin Bradshaw, Coordinator of Communications and Community Engagement, to provide the good news report, which will include a Suffolk Transit donation to us for free bus passes, Nansemond River High School student earning a spot in the 2025 All Virginia Band, SPS 30 Annual Parents and Partners Community Event. Our SPS expands our art enrichment opportunities. Evanaya Parsons from Kingsfork High School being the first girls wrestling state champion in SPS history. Dr. Branch, our CAO, receiving the Women's of Education and Leadership Virginia Spirit Award, as well as athletic highlights. Then I will close out with the calendar of special events. Mr. Bradshaw?
Good evening, Madam Chair Howell, Vice Chair McGee, school board members, and Dr. Gordon. In a move aimed at easing transportation barriers for local families, Suffolk Public Schools received 200 free all-day bus passes for parents and guardians in need. The passes provided by Suffolk Transit can be used on any Suffolk Transit route throughout the year 2025, offering increased access to jobs, medical appointments, and vital community services. The bus passes will be distributed to parents and guardians who demonstrate transportation needs that might otherwise limit their engagement with their children's education. Interested families can request a pass by visiting the www.suffolkva.us/buspass or contacting Suffolk Transit at 757-214-6442. Both Suffolk Public Schools and Suffolk Transit hope that this program will serve as a catalyst for improved educational engagement. The free bus passes stand to make a long-lasting impact on families throughout the city. Suffolk Public Schools music programs continue to excel, providing once again the power of quality music education. Congratulations to Andrew Perkins, and Nevaeh Razor for Nansemond River High School on earning a spot in the 2025 All-Virginia Band, a testament to their talent, dedication, and the strength of our music instruction. Andrew Perkins was second chair, tenor sax, symphonic band. Nevaeh Razor was third chair, alto sax, concert band. This marks a historic achievement for Nansemond River High School, as this is the first time multiple students have been selected for all-state band in the same year. Suffolk Public Schools continues to be a leader in music education, empowering students with opportunities to achieve at the highest levels. This success highlights the impact of strong music instruction and the dedication of our educators. We also extend a huge congratulations to Mr. Edward Woodis for his exceptional leadership and commitment to music education. If your schedule allows, we ask our board members, administrators, and SPS community to join us in celebrating this remarkable accomplishment at the All-Virginia Band Concert on Saturday, April 26th at 2 p.m., which will be at the Richmond Convention Center. This concert is free and open to the public. Our 2025 Parents and Partners Community event went beyond simply providing information. It fostered a space where families, educators, and community vendors could come together to strengthen the educational experience for our students. By attending interactive information sessions, parents gained direct insights into effective instructional strategies, student success tips, and opportunities available for student athletes, while the vendor fair offered resources and support services tailored to each child's needs. These personal connections and practical takeaways help ensure that families feel empowered and confident in guiding their children's academic and personal growth. Community engagement plays a critical role in education because it creates a bridge between the school environment and the world beyond the classroom. When families and community partners take an active interest in student learning, students benefit from a more consistent, well-rounded support system. The Suffolk Public Schools Department of Fine Art and Performing Arts proudly recognizes the success of the Elementary Theater Enrichment Camp, which was held on March 1st, 2025 at Creekside Elementary School. This dynamic program provided elementary students with an engaging opportunity to explore the world of theater, fostering creativity, collaboration, and confidence in young learners. Throughout the day, students participated in a variety of theatrical activities designed to develop their performance skills and self-expression. They explored improvisation, storytelling, confidence-building games, and puppetry, learning essential techniques that encourage creativity and stage presence. As a special takeaway, each student crafted their own sock puppet to bring home, reinforcing their newfound skills in storytelling and character creation. Aria Anaya Parson from Kings Fork High School is the first girls wrestling state champion in Suffolk Public Schools history. Parson completed her season undefeated at 19-0. She ended the championship wrestling match with a 31-second pin of her opponent, earning the state title of state champion. Come on up, Anaya. The ELV Spirit Award was established in 2009 and is presented to a leader who has significantly contributed to supporting the mission of women education leaders in Virginia, which is to promote women in all areas of education and further women's participation in high levels of educational administration. Dr. Okima Branch has been a tireless advocate for women in educational leadership and has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to mentorship, empowerment, and professional growth. Her dedication to supporting women in education is evident through her leadership in the Naomi Project, where she has uplifted women and provided them with the tools necessary for success. With over 25 years in education and leadership, Dr. Branch not only leads, but also guides school leaders in fostering supportive environments. As a WLV member, she embodies the spirit of their mission, consistently advocating for women's advancement in educational administration. Congratulations to Dr. Branch. Tonight's athletic highlights include our Region 5B basketball players. Starting with the girls, Riley Height from Kings Fork High School was first team All-Region. Jaslyn Hubbard from Kings Fork was first team All-Region. Kennedy Young from Kings Fork was second team All-Region. Jordan Richardson from Nansemond River was first team All-Region. And Brittany Evans from Nansemond River was first team All-Region. Congratulations to those girls. Our boys group is Adarius Boston from Kings Fork. He was first team All-Region. Jeremiah Morris from Kings Fork was second team All-Region. Khalil Capel from Kings Fork was second team All-Region. Teron Atwater from Nansemond River was second team All-Region. Christian Jordan from Nansemond River was second team All-Region. And Quentin Cruz from Nansemond River was also second team All-Region. Congratulations to all those girls and boys who were selected for the Region 5B basketball. And this concludes my part of the Good News Report.
Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw, and congratulations again to Ariana and Dr. Branch. Ariana makes history. Will go down in SPS history. For the calendar of special events, March is Youth Art Month, Women's History Month, Music in Our Schools Month, and Nutrition Month. For the Music in Our Schools, I know that Dr. Neighbors was actually at the Cultural Arts Center putting up more of our things related to Art Month, and you've heard about some of the great work that's happening with our students in our fine and performing arts programs. As we look forward to next week, can't believe it's next week, Poetry Month, School Library Month, World Autism, and Month of the Military Child. Thank you to Dr. Bird and all of our principals for achieving their Purple Star status. It's going to be our goal to be a Purple Star school division for military's support and appreciation of our students. Next Tuesday, school community, next Tuesday is the end of the third grading period on April 1st. Of course, that means that the following day on the 2nd is the beginning of our last grading period. National Assistant Principal Week is actually for that entire stretch of the 7th to the 22nd due to spring break. Parent-Teacher Conference and report cards will be distributed on April 10th. That is also will be an early release for students. That is also our next school board meeting, which will start at 5 p.m. on April 10th at City Hall. That is the calendar of special events, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon. Up next on our agenda would be the public speakers on agenda topics, so I yield the floor to Ms. Gardner.
It is the intent of the school board to ensure that the affairs of the board be conducted in an open and orderly manner, that all persons desiring to address the board are afforded an opportunity to do so in the order in which they sign up to speak, that persons in attendance may observe and hear the proceedings of the board without distraction, and that the members of the board and board employees are able to transact the business of the board with minimal disruption. Any persons addressing the board shall, 1, confine their comments to matters germane to services, policies, and affairs of the school board or Suffolk Public Schools. 2, refrain from words or statements which, from their usual construction and common acceptance, are construed as insults intended to incite violence or breach of the peace. 3, refrain from obscenity, vulgarity, or other breach of respect. 4, comply with the time limit for public comment as set by the board, which can be up to 5 minutes unless the board, through the exercise of its discretion, decides to allow less than 5 minutes for public comment. 5, refrain from cumulative or repetitive remarks. And 6, refrain from making any comment regarding any pending student discipline or employee grievance matters. The appropriate forum for such matters is the applicable administrative hearing provided by state law, or where appropriate, court proceeding. Persons must not engage in disorderly, disruptive, or boisterous conduct such as, but not limited to, making noise, use of profane language or obscene gestures, yelling, or similar demonstrations that interrupts or disturbs the peace and good order of the meeting. Persons addressing the board may deliver to the board or its clerk written materials including reports, statements, exhibits, letters, or signed petitions, and may also make use of any chart or graph during their verbal presentation. The school board welcomes comments from the public as appropriate. Board members will listen to public comment but will not comment, deliberate, or take action on them. The school board chair may direct the superintendent to investigate items and report back to the school board at a subsequent meeting. The chair or other presiding officer shall preserve decorum and shall decide all questions of public order, subject to appeal to the board. At the request of the chair, a city police officer shall act as sergeant-at-arms at tonight's board meeting. That officer shall, under the direction of the chair or other presiding officer, have charge of the meeting area, the waiting areas, and corridors adjacent thereto, and shall prevent disorder or interruption of the business of the board. Our first speaker is Mr. Travis McKinney regarding the school is burning and y'all playing games of pettiness.
Good evening. So I'm here to reference an article in the Suffolk Herald, which is in the public domain. I've come to this board before and I've stated many times, whenever I come across something I don't understand what's going on, I always default to the one question: power. Who has it? Who wants it? What will they do to obtain it? Allow me a quote: "The wish to acquire power is in truth very natural and common, and men will always do so when they can. And for this they will be praised, not blamed. But when they cannot do so, yet wish to do so by any means, then there is folly and blame." The Prince, circa 1510. I had to read an article in the Suffolk Herald regarding the censure of the board member 3 separate times. The first time I read it, I was kind of just puzzled. I was kind of set back a little bit. The second time I read it, I started laughing my tail end off. And the third time I read it was in absolute contempt. I cannot believe the obvious display of the pettiness of the administration that brought the complaints and the foolishness of the board that actually gave it due consideration. The thing about power politics is it's not always a straightforward thing. Sometimes it's subtle in their actions. I'll allow another quote, according to Max Weber, quote, "Within a social relationship, power is any chance, regardless of the basis of this chance, to carry through one's own will, even against resistance." And this whole censorship and this whole ridiculousness was in the Herald paper. It's nothing but that one chance to gain influence, gain power by tearing down or characterizing an opponent in a political ideology. Now, I realize that a lot of people in Suffolk don't follow the politics of the boards as closely as I do. But I want to set the record straight. Beyond a fireman, somebody on those boards tell me what is a routine day-to-day operation of a school building burning. I really want to understand that concept. The school board member gets a phone call: "Hey, the school's on fire, we can't reach leadership." The school board member does what she can to spread the word, and y'all said to, and my God, and y'all actually entertained a complaint brought by the administration that this was interfering on a day-to-day basis, and you actually tied in that vote. Do y'all understand how incredulous that whole thing looks? You know, in all honesty. Somebody is contacted, put in a stressful situation, something that's not ordinary to the day-to-day lives, and how to respond to a crisis, reaches out and does the best thing to their ability that they know how to do, and y'all want to sit there and take a complaint that interfered with a day-to-day routine operation, and you tied on that vote. My God. To further the silliness, you gave serious consideration and voted in the affirmative that a board member was not allowed to have a conversation about a resume to an administrator. And all this because you didn't ask Mother May I from the superintendent before she approached and talked to this person. I want y'all to look in the cameras and explain to Suffolk at large exactly what the violation is here. See, because according to the article, the person, the administrator that she engaged in a conversation with, wasn't present at the hearing that you had. And what we had was a hearsay testament from the superintendent that that's what he was told on who approached who first. But yet again, y'all voted in the affirmative. And I'm just trying to figure out what page out of the George Orwell 1984 did you use for your reference that this is something that people do on a normal day-to-day basis. See, the power dynamics that go on here, there used to be 4 of you that sat there and had this groupthink mentality and walked lockstep, nodding your heads, bobbing yes, 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 yes all the time. There's only 2 of you left. Your votes have been recorded. And I guarantee you that I don't care if it's Barney or Bobo the Clown, if you get opposition in your campaigns, you're going to see this silliness again. Ms. Gardner, you can go ahead and take me off the non-agenda speaker list for the night. The FOIA requests that I put out there haven't come back in. In closing, I'm going to tell you one thing. You guys got a problem with vetting out your bus drivers, not getting your time list back on vetting out your bus drivers. You have a bunch of S3s. You got an army of S3s. Split their clocks, put one of them on the bus with the bus driver until the background check comes in, and I'll solve your problem. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. McKinney. Is there anyone else?
Second speaker is Jennifer Willman regarding the budget.
Good evening, members of the board and SPS staff. My name is Jennifer Willman, and I'm before you as a concerned taxpayer and a parent. As you prepare to vote on the budget, I urge you to prioritize strong fiscal responsibility, transparency, and accountability. To achieve this, I recommend that the board pursue implementing a schedule for forensic audits. A forensic audit differs from a gas audit, which is typically the standard for an annual audit. A forensic audit is a comprehensive examination of an organization's financial records and data. It can identify control weaknesses, enhance governance, and promote transparency and accountability. Appropriate forensic audits conducted every 3 to 5 years can help ensure the integrity of financial operations and identify areas for improvement. The board may find it prudent to conduct more forensic audits in high-risk areas more frequently. Those areas would be procurement, payroll, and student activity funds. By utilizing this tool, the board can provide an additional layer of oversight and ensure that the financial management practices are robust and effective. To be very clear, a forensic audit is a valuable tool that can provide assurance on the effectiveness of financial management practices. It is absolutely not a reflection on the competence or the integrity of staff, but rather a proactive measure to ensure best practices and outcomes. I urge you to support this initiative, demonstrating your commitment to responsibility and transparency. As elected representatives, it is your duty to verify the expectations and goals that are being met through robust monitoring and review. And in short, please inspect what you and we, the citizens of Suffolk, expect. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Mrs. Willman.
There are no more speakers.
That concludes our public speakers on agenda topics. We now move on to unfinished business. There's only one item under unfinished business, and that is the bus driver applicant's VDSS acknowledgement form. This was tabled from the earlier March meeting to allow board members, if they so choose, to consult with the attorney and their colleagues about this before making a decision. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I don't have a motion. I would ask if it was possible, in the pleasure of the board, if staff could come out and explain once again to the board members and to the general public exactly what is the request, that staff do it. What is the request versus what is being done now, and go in depth in their articulation as into, are we putting anyone at risk with at a greater risk with taking the suggested approach versus what is currently into practice.
Okay, so you would like staff to come and just review what the request is in this bus driver applicant's VDSS form? Speak to it again?
Yes, to speak to it again, because from my conversations, there are some board members who are still, have some concerns. So that would just be my recommendation, because in their presentation, I believe we may or may not get the information that is necessary to help us finalize our thought process.
Okay, I will yield to Dr. Gordon because I don't believe Mr. Privett's able to be here.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to call to the podium Dr. Jessica Avery, Director of Human Resources, to further reinforce the difference between the original background check for criminal activity as well as CPS and the reasoning for the request of using this VDSS acknowledgement form in order to be able to expedite the hiring process of our bus drivers. Dr. Avery?
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Gordon, School Board. To explain the difference, we do 2 background checks, any employee that we hire. One is from the state police. That's when the fingerprinting takes place. That is checking somebody's background for a criminal record. So anything on that will come from the fingerprints. We get that back in about 24, 48 hours. The other check is one that's conducted by social services for CPS, any neglect or abuse against children, and that's the one you're asking about. The form that is signed by our staff currently, that is the one where they're signing that there is no allegations, nothing that's been founded against them, which is also answered in their application. All employees have to answer that as well. That is the one that goes to the social services. It gets mailed to Richmond, and they're the one that search the database for social service for child neglect, CPS, for child neglect or abuse allegations.
Are there, excuse me, are there any questions, board members, that you'd like to dig in further or clarify? Board Member Slingloff?
Yes, thank you for coming back up tonight to repeat some of that. Doing a little bit of research, I understand that the central registry, which is the CPS background check they're signing off of, holds information about substantiated cases of child abuse and neglect, but they may not show up on the criminal background but though they may be founded complaints. So I guess my biggest question is, if we do the first background check and that's sufficient, why would we do the second background check? And I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek because if the second background check, or the CPS, the registry one, if that has merit to it, then to me, I think that it holds enough merit for us to wait for it. Particularly, I feel concerned. I understand that if we have staff in the building, we don't want them to be alone with children. If they're at risk, if they were to lie and be in that position of, with the students, there tend to be more people around. Not every time, certainly, but when you're on a bus, it can be very, very stressful. And heaven knows we have a lot of stress on our bus drivers on those routes. There's a ton of stress that they deal with, and frequently, I think more frequently, they would probably have an opportunity to be alone with a student at the end of a route. So I am concerned if it's, again, if it's a merited process that we go through, then I think it's worthwhile to wait for those results to come back. I think that we should perpetually be ongoing trying to hire bus drivers, as I assume we are. And so as soon as they come in, we start the process. I think that's important, but I don't feel comfortable personally myself with cutting that time frame short and running the risk of putting our kids in a position that could jeopardize them. I think every one of us, if anything did happen, I think we would certainly regret shortchanging the time. So thank you.
Any other board members have any comments or questions? Board Member Brittingham?
Thank you, Madam
Hold
Chair.
on 1 second.
Dr. Avery, I'm not 100% sure if Ms. Slingloff had a question within her statement, but if there's anything you want to be able to respond to based on concerns before Dr. Brittingham speaks, now would probably be a good opportunity.
Sure. Thank you. The initial part of your, I believe, was a question and the difference. Again, the ones that are reported on the state police, the fingerprint check, is if charges are drawn, if there is something that criminally that is found. That's when it shows up on that one there.
Madam Chair, if I could just make one comment, because I think embedded in the statement made by Board Member Slinglove was whether or not this is something that is required, and it is required. It's required under the state code that this form of background check be done.
So just for clarity, is it possible that there are founded accusations or reports of abuse or neglect where someone doesn't press charges? My reading this makes me believe that there's a chance that someone could, have founded charges but not press charges, so therefore it doesn't become a criminal thing. So there is a chance that someone could be an abuser or could have, and it seems that way to me, that they could have committed an abuse or a crime against a child, but the charges were not pressed. Is that an accurate assessment?
In my experience, that when there's charges findings, often that there are charges as well.
Can I add to that, Doc? So whenever there's a report of child abuse, it automatically goes to Child Protective Services and the police. It's not you want to press charges. If the mandated reporter reports it, they do a investigation together. Police determine if there are any criminal offenses there. It's not that the offenders or the victim presses charges. That's automatic. That will filter if there's any criminal charges that's associated with this, and that's all led through social services. So the victim, whether they press charges or not, the charges they could possibly press would be assault or what have you. But that's determined throughout the joint investigation by Department of Social Services as well as the city police.
Board Member Brittingham.
So looking at this form and looking at the two different types of background checks that we're talking about, we could potentially have a situation where there were no criminal charges, but someone was potentially involved in some sort of investigation, and that didn't lead to charges, but they were part of something that was impacting a child negatively. And I think that's kind of what Board Member Slinglove is alluding to, is that, in those cases, we would want to be overcautious and making sure that we never expose any of our students to somebody who could potentially be a predator or an abuser of some kind. Just because they don't have criminal charges yet doesn't mean that they haven't had a proclivity to be involved in things that are leading to that. And so waiting for this central registry to come back would allow us to know with certainty that there's nothing looming out there against somebody who is trying to be employed with us and have access to our most vulnerable resources, which are our children, our assets. So I guess I too agree with Board Member Slinglove. My concern is I would rather know that we have cleared both of these ahead of time and not take the chance that we might end up having a child that falls into the hands of somebody that could endanger them. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Did you have anything you wanted to follow up before I move on?
No.
Okay. Board Member Jenkins?
Yes, thank you. I guess my question is, in the past or up to now, what is the percentage of we hiring someone and then later having to fire them or let them go because we found something in the other?
Right. I've been in this role for 3 years, and I have not had that situation.
Okay.
Thank you. Vice Chair McGee?
Just wanted to piggyback, Madam Chair, on what Dr. Brown stated. When it comes to child abuse charges and domestic abuse charges, the victim is the Commonwealth of Virginia. Even if a victim a victim doesn't want to press charges, the Commonwealth will adopt that case and assume the victim in that role. My question for Dr. Avery, or maybe you, Attorney Waller, does the code state what's a disqualification inside this background check?
If the person comes back with a finding from social services of abuse and neglect, they should not be hired.
Any further comments or questions from anyone? Okay, I would just like to offer my input. From my vantage point before we vote, so no one has to fill in the blanks with what I was thinking or how I decided to approach this vote. I have asked questions of the superintendent. I have asked questions and dialogued with some of my colleagues, and a couple of words that Board Member Brittingham said jumped out to me that we can't apply in any situation, a school system, a private business, anything, because it's just not real life. We never want to put our children in danger. We put them on a bus as a parent, there's the potential for danger. We send them into a school, there's the potential for danger. So to sit here and say we're going to make a certain choice because we never want something to happen, that's just not realistic, and that's not how we function in society. We do a risk assessment, we mitigate the risk we can, which we are doing with the first background check, the criminal background check, and I heard how Dr. Brown and Dr. Avery both explained that one sense triggers the other. And so I also heard Dr. Avery say never in her 3 years in this role has she found someone to come back with no criminal charges, but to come back with findings of abuse or neglect through the social services check. And so I feel like to respond to a need in our district for bus drivers, we are doing more than adequate vetting with the criminal background check, with the statistics you provided, how often it happens that the other check comes back and there was something hidden. And as Vice Chair McGee spoke on, and I know he works quite a bit with risk assessment, and I'll be honest, when he expresses a comfort level with this, it's another reassuring factor for me that I'm not taking this lightly. I'm not just putting your children on the bus with whoever. We are mitigating the risk here, and we are also seeking to get your kids to school on time, because that's been a pervasive complaint from the community, and we are short on bus drivers. And one of the solutions to the shortage is to treat our bus drivers the way that we have our teachers, do the background check with the fingerprint, and then have them sign this form affirming that they have never been found of abuse or neglect, just as our teachers do. And so for my personal individual one-person vote, mine doesn't carry any more weight than anybody else's. I don't ever want it said I took this lightly, or I'm a bobblehead, or I'm just agreeing with, this team or that team. I've done my due diligence on it. I have an understanding of it that leads me to believe this is a reasonable and safe solution to a problem that persists in our district. With that, is there any final discussion before we call for the vote? Board Member Slingloff.
Okay. I just wanted to ask Attorney Waller. Attorney Waller, you said that it's required in law that we do both the background check and the central registry. Does it state in there whether it has to be completed before they're hired?
No, it does not.
It doesn't. Okay. Thank you.
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you to Dr. Gordon, Dr. Avery, and Dr. Brown for the information. Dr. Gordon and I have had some extensive conversation about the matter as well, and I just wanted to bring it all out because sometimes when we try to recap what you all do in day-to-day, things can get lost in the sauce inadvertently, and to hear it directly from you all and those of us who did do our research, it eased a lot of concerns that we had. And I definitely agree with Chair Howe. We can never be at 100% confidence, certainty interval that nothing will ever happen. There are people who passed everything and still do something crazy. I mean, it's human nature. It's the world we're in. But that's all I had to say. Thank you, Dr. Gordon, Dr. Avery, Dr. Brown.
With no further discussion, we're ready for a vote. Oh, actually, we need a motion. Sorry, you guys, I'm trying to get y'all out of here by 8. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move to adopt the waiver form for bus drivers.
Okay.
Second.
It has been moved by Vice Chair McGee to approve the bus driver applicant VDSS acknowledgement form, and it's been seconded by Board Member Jenkins. We're ready for a vote.
Board members, please vote. Board Member Dr. Brittingham.
Yes.
Board Member Fields. Board Member Jenkins.
Yes.
Board Member Riddick.
Yes.
Board Member Slinglove.
No.
Board Member Vice Chair McGee.
Yes.
Board Chair Howell.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Moving on to new business is the Resolution 2024/25-23, a resolution of the school board for the City of Suffolk approving the budget for Suffolk Public Schools for fiscal year 2025-26, totaling $244,554,074, which includes local funding from the City of Suffolk in the amount of $82,332,201. I would like to just, before asking for a motion, give an opportunity for discussion. If anyone has any follow-up questions, I know that we submitted questions about the budget by March 11th, and we submitted feedback about suggested amendments or adjustments by March 20th. We've received answers from Dr. Gordon, and so at this time, if you have anything that you want to ask further or clarify, now would be the time before we call for a vote.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
I just got a question that I want to ask. Are we applying for the grant that will support and law enforcement officials, school resource officers at our schools? And my question is, that's part one. Part two is, in the event that we are applying and the grant is awarded, have we identified other places that we could shift those funds to, such as expanding our family engagement or our community engagement office?
Dr. Gordon.
Madam Chair, yes, Mr. Riddick, I think you and I actually had a conversation about that as well. That grant is definitely on our radar. We do need to have some input from the city, since it is a partnership with local law enforcement. As the board knows, and thank you for the question, Mr. Riddick, the city is going to determine how many school resource officers they will be able to support us with. That may be an adjustment that they would make in their funding of the budget if they can't support all 11 of the elementary SROs that we are requesting. So I can't give you a direct answer with that, because that is part of the $7 million request to bring our total amount to $82,332,201. The city may decide, since we actually reimburse the city back for the SROs as a part of purchase services, they may then decide to only be able to provide us the money to fund the X number of SROs they will give us. If they do decide to still give us the full amount, even though they may not be able to provide school resource officers, then we will take a look at some of the unfunded needs that we had listed in our original presentation. We will also take a look at some of the things that we're going to bring to the board as options for year-end spending that we plan to bring to the board at the end of April for your first review and then a vote in May.
And Mr. Riddick, in case you haven't heard, the Education Committee was an open meeting, and we discussed what to talk about at the joint meeting, but I will say that both the mayor and Mr. Moore brought a concern to us about being able to pull 11 officers off the street. So that's already in their mind, trying to figure out what to do if they can't meet the 11 with their current staffing. So that's another factor that we may be dealing with outside of the funding for it.
No, I definitely understand that. I was under the impression, because it was stated to me, that a conversation had already been had with the police chief, and it was stated that this is something that can be done. However, I am 100% confident that between the two law enforcement offices we have in our locality, the sheriff's office and the police department, I believe there's definitely a recipe to make something happen. It's just those creative conversations have to be had prior to us finding out things.
Correct. And I hope your confidence spills over to those two law enforcement agencies. Board Member Brittingham?
So that was one of the questions that I was going to pose, because I recently spoke with the sheriff here in Suffolk and asked him if that was a possibility. And so I guess my question is, have we had a conversation with the Sheriff's Department to see how many positions they can backfill as well? Because that's an option, and certainly that would put more officers in our schools as SROs. They maybe not have as many to offer right now, but hopefully through several more cadet programs that happen between the Suffolk and the police department, within the next couple of years, maybe we could see more than 11 SROs. But we need to have that conversation. Is what I'm saying, is we need to address both the police department through Chief Bowie and the Sheriff's Department through our current sheriff.
Understand, and I can tell you that I have spoken with the sheriff about this. He expressed his concerns to me that his crew is guided by the court docket. They're not flexible in that, and they're often pulled at random for someone who requires transport.
Right.
And we don't want, we want an individual consistently in each of our elementary schools that's forming a relationship and a bond with the student body, the faculty, and the staff. So that was a concern. But as far as navigating this discussion, from my understanding, it's the responsibility of the mayor and city council to have those conversations with the chief and the sheriff. They've received our input in multiple instances. Dr. Gordon?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to be able to answer some of the things that Mr. Riddick brought up, as well as the discussion that Dr. Brittingham just mentioned. So first part is that Mr. Riddick is correct. Chief Bowie originally believed that he was going to be able to fill all 11 of the SROs that we were going to have. And then the Suffolk Police Department then had some vacancies. So that kind of shifted from them making sure that they had enough to actually patrol the city. The second part for the conversations that I know that Ms. Howell has had, as well as what Dr. Brittingham just mentioned, the city manager, Sheriff Miles, Chief Bowie, and myself have a meeting scheduled for next week to be able to come up with an alternative plan just in case that full allotment cannot occur. Do want to remind the board that the sheriff's deputies are already in our elementary schools. They go by whenever they have that opportunity based on, as Madam Chair stated, the court dockets that are occurring. That will continue. Part of our discussion that we're going to have is if we do not have that full allotment, to designate specific days that we will have officers in a certain number of schools so that the sheriff's department can take care of the other schools. That kind of reinforces what Ms. Howell was talking about building the relationships with our students, staff, and school community, because you're consistently seeing the same face. So we do have our initial meeting forward. Worst case scenario, we already will have our sheriff's deputies will still be in our schools. We're just trying to be able to provide additional support by having as many SROs that the Suffolk Police Department can spare when we start the 25-26 school year.
Any further questions? Go ahead.
So just to clarify, currently we don't have dedicated SROs. We have SROs that are in our buildings that are either split between buildings, or we have SROs that stop into our elementary schools from time to time. But what we have right now, what we're asking for as a board, I think multiple board members have asked, is that we strategically plan to have SROs that are completely and utterly dedicated to being in our schools, to provide service to the school, not being called out on the street, not having to run between buildings, but are dedicated to our buildings. And I understand that's not going to happen all in this budget season. This is something that we're going to have to strategically plan out over the next 2 or 3 years, because several academies are going to have to come and go for both the sheriff's department and for the police department before they could even get close to helping fill 11, much less 21 of our schools. So I do understand this is a process, but my concern is, how many dedicated officers, whether those are police officers or sheriff's officers, will we have this year? And it sounds like it's 4. And then how are we planning to increase that? How are we going to partner with both the sheriff's department and the police department to increase these steadily over the next 2 to 3 years, so that we're at a place where we end up having, 21 officers in all of our 21 schools?
Dr. Gordon?
Yes, I just got to clarify, because Dr. Brittingham, we have SROs in all of our secondary schools now. So the focus that we have put forward is to focus on the 11 elementary schools. The sharing that you were referring to is only when there is an incident, there is a designated officers from the closest secondary school, regardless of its middle school or a high school, that would go to the elementary school along with road units. It's not just the SRO that will be designated to go there. The sheriff's department that comes into our elementary schools are there as a deterrent. They also check doors. They are having conversations with our students, and they are also involved with the SPD because they do have a great partnership already. So I agree with part of what you said, Dr. Brittingham. We do believe if they can't fill all 11, that it will be a multi-year process. However, we also know that there's a specific training that we want to have anyone that's in our schools will have to go through for SROs. Is different than just being a Suffolk police officer. There is specific training for our SROs, and that is something that both Chief Bowie and I feel is a non-negotiable. So depending on the allotment that we get from the city, that will then allow Dr. Brown, Sergeant Key, myself, and the rest of our security team to come up with a plan. And then the Sheriff's Department is going to be asked, because we can't require, they're going to be asked to try to be able to fill in the gaps or to be able to provide additional support as needed. So I'll be able to provide more information, Madam Chair, back to the board after we have kind of solidified the plan. And the main variable there will be once the Suffolk Police Department informs us of how many officers will be able to start with us in 25, 26.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon. And just to clarify for anybody listening, when he says allotment, we're not talking about funding. That's allotment of actual officers, how many they're going to allot us. And then that will tie into our budget. One thing that was suggested at my recent town hall that I will pass on to you for your meeting next week. I know there's a lot of factors that go into this, and I'm not going to dive into that now, but someone asked, can we reach out to retired Suffolk PD and ask if they're willing? And I know things that come into play with that are, they're limited on the hours they can work if they're receiving retirement. But that is not for me to figure out and sort, so I'm passing that request along to you, well, to the mayor through you. Are there any other questions that you all need answered before we can vote on the budget?
I just have one question. So just to make it clear, when we ask for the funds from the city, from the budget, for our police officers or SROs, we get the money from the city, and then we pay the money back for the SROs. Is that correct? So if we don't get what we need in the budget, then we can't pay for the SROs. Is that how normal cities with the schools, do they pay for their, just wondering, do you know?
So, Ms. Forsman, if you have some additional input that you can provide Ms. Jenkins on that, and that's part of the reason why I mentioned earlier that SROs are actually a part of purchase services. So her question was, based on your many, many years of experience, is the formula or the process that we have for payment and reimbursement typical of what you see for school divisions?
This is my 4th school division that I've worked for in my 27 years. No. City of Suffolk is the only place I've ever worked that we are required to reimburse the city for the cost of the officers plus their benefits, all their retirement, all the benefits they have for them, health insurance, everything, for the time they work for us. Now, we've limited that to only the 10 months that children are in school. So on the other 2 months, the officers are training, they're out on the streets, working the streets or working wherever the police department needs them. We only reimburse the actual amount of days that the kids are in school. But for those days, we pay for everything, salaries, benefits, of all kinds.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? What do the 3 other school districts do if they're not reimbursing the city for the officers?
It's been a while since I worked there, but when I worked in those divisions, the police department just provided those to the school. They were an internal service that the city provided to the school division.
Madam Chair, may I?
Vice Chair McGee.
Quick follow-up to that, Ms. Forsman, just so the public can be aware. So we did have that education meeting last Monday with the mayor, and I think that was addressed, and that was a concern of his as well, the funding piece. He didn't think it made sense to send the funds to us just for us to pay him back. He suggested that the city provide officers to the schools. That was a concern of his as well. So might be something we want to discuss during the joint meeting on the 9th. Second thing, Dr. Gordon, I know we spoke on this, and I want to say it publicly. Even if the city isn't able to provide more than 4 officers for the schools, I really want to foot stomp the need for that additional funding to mitigate any threats, vulnerabilities that have been identified in past security assessments that we're aware of. A suggestion that I've been thinking about, and I will let you take this to Chief Bowie, with that additional money, make it an extra duty assignment. If you do the numbers, do the math for 7 schools, for 8 officers, for 180 days, you're looking at roughly just over $600,000, where we can have additional officers in the school, but for extra duty, and it's not taken from his police force.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Mr. McGee, thank you for that suggestion. Just for clarity, so and to make sure that the public knows the terminology. So you're suggesting that the city potentially could still be able to provide us the $862,000 or roughly $1 million when you add in the coverage that we were talking about for games. Those officers would then still be Suffolk Police Department officers, but will work with us for overtime as an extra duty assignment to be able to cover the gaps. Is that what you're suggesting?
Or they can open it up with their, I'm sure they have an extra duty coordinator, just like the games, and they can pull from that as, that pool. I know there's additional training required for these SROs, but this is another suggestion just to mitigate that. If we can receive the funds, that would cover full coverage of all our schools, I believe.
Yeah, we don't have a problem making that a part of the discussion next week.
Board Member Slingloff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm curious, we were given the opportunity to make any adjustments that we wanted to the budget by the 20th last week, to submit any suggestions to the superintendent. I'm curious if any of those requests were able to be accommodated, if there was any. It doesn't appear to me that there's anything adjusted with the budget. For me personally, I know my number 1 priority back in October, November, when we presented our board priorities, my number 1 priority was teacher salaries, teacher raises. And, as I look at the budget, I think the one thing that makes me discouraged with the budget is that the teachers are given the same raise roughly across the board from the top to the bottom at 3 to 3.5%. But they're drastically, what they take in is drastically less than the top of, the food chain, if you will. So I'm curious, I guess I want to know, was there any opportunity to find any additional funds that we were able to skim from any other area to increase the teacher salaries to give them a higher raise than what we currently have on the budget?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your question, Ms. Slingloff. So we took the feedback that you and Dr. Brittingham presented to us. I know that Mr. McGee had also submitted some information a little bit later on. A couple of things I want to be able to share with you. One, We know that the governor has requested that the General Assembly comes back. And part of the reason that the General Assembly will be coming back because there are still some things that have not been resolved based on some of the vetoes that he did, as well as things overall for funding for education. So the request from both you and Dr. Brittingham was a little bit higher, and Mr. McGee was to take teacher salaries to 5% to 5.5%. If we receive any additional funds from the General Assembly like we are believing that we will, that's what we're going to do. We will be able to increase those salaries. Now, I won't be able to tell you all until I see what that exact figure is, what that percentage will be, but I am comfortable sharing any additional funds that come from the state. We will then use that to increase the salaries to be able to meet the requests that multiple board members have put in. I do have to, however, remind you that part of the reason why you see a difference when it comes to salaries is the length of the contract. So teachers are on 10-month contracts, where some of the other individuals that you referred to, top of the food chain, are on 12-month contracts. So their contracts are longer, which is part of the main reason why their compensation package is higher. We do want to be able to continue to give raises like we've done every year. I think all of us are on the same page with that. I know that you had made a suggestion about being able to reduce purchase services. But I think we got to be extremely careful with that, because as a reminder to the board, we do not have any preventive maintenance money of $3.575 million. We have already discussed how SROs themselves are a part of purchase services. One of our big spending events that you have been a part of, and all the board members here have probably heard about, is our sinkholes. Sinkholes are also repairs were a part of purchase services. That was at $1.9 million last year. And we are in a tough situation this year where we're going to have to make some additional choices. Purchase services, part of the reason why I'm saying we need to be extremely cautious in doing that is that also includes HVAC repairs, Orkin, Johnson Controls, our athletic trainers, that we have with OBC Centaura. That's also a part of that. We got to make sure that all of our student athletes are safe. Our fiber optics projects and all the copiers that we have in the schools. So, it's going to be an extreme challenge because we actually have less than what we're doing. I know one of the comments that you had made, and we understand and we get it, that purchase services has increased, and it has because there's less availability for staff to be able to perform some of these duties, and the cost of these services themselves have increased due to inflation. So I am comfortable and confident in sharing with the entire board and our school community any additional funds will definitely go to increasing teacher salaries. Now, the one caveat I do want to be able to share with the board is you all know that sometimes when the General Assembly releases additional funds to us, they tell us specifically where it has to go. If it's going to be for SOQs for special education, if it's going to be for English language learner teachers, et cetera. And that was part of the reason why we wanted to be as specific as possible when it came to providing you all the $7.5 million of unfunded needs that came from our schools, our departments, and the board. So as we are looking to be able to meet that goal, the number one goal that we always have is teacher salaries. To be honest, the number one goal that we always have is everyone's salaries, because we have to make sure that all of our staff in Suffolk Public Schools is competitive. I've told you all the story of how we have reached to the highest as third one time, and then one of our neighboring school divisions called a special meeting because we were outperforming them. In our current scale that we have that's now made public, that same school division superintendent was concerned because about 15 of our steps were actually outperforming them again. So if our school division for teachers is 6th in the region, it's the same for administrators. It's the same for all staff, because we have really tried to be consistent when we have revised our scales in the past. So you have my word, Ms. Slingluff and all other board members. Once this is final from the General Assembly, we will come back to you all and show you the adjustments that will allow you to see the overall increase. That 5% to 5.5% is the ultimate goal, and we're hoping that we'll be able to reach that.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just following up on a couple things that Dr. Gordon talked about. in the General Assembly right now, they are looking at the idea of including a one-time bonus, which would be $1,000 per SOQ position for every school division. So that money that comes in would be completely dedicated to providing a one-time bonus for these teachers, not necessarily giving them a raise. So it wouldn't be something that would come back year after year. This is a one-time allocation, which would then require the school board to make that part of the budget in subsequent years, correct?
Mr. President, if you want to come back up and kind of give some details, because the bonus actually will be a part of this fiscal year. And you're correct, Dr. Brittingham, and partially what you said, how there needs to be a budget adjustment. But Ms. Forsman, you want to explain to Dr. Brittingham and the school community how the bonus actually works?
Certainly. The state, as the General Assembly approved and sent to the governor, which he then sent back, was a bonus, a one-time bonus of $1,000. And the directive that we got with that bonus was that bonus was to be used to give all SOQ positions, which include support staff, everyone, a raise, and that the school divisions could use it creatively to make it work the best for them. Now, when they say they had the money in there, they had about $1.5 million in there for a $1,000 bonus. If we provide that bonus to all staff, you're looking at about $2.4 million that it would cost to do that. But we have the ability to do that creatively by making it part of the signing of a contract to come back, all those kinds of things that we've done in the past to help retain staff. Unfortunately, it went back. It was part of what was sent back to the General Assembly. So we do not know at this point whether they'll complete that for this current year or not.
And I just want to add to that. Also, part of the conversations that we've had with this board, part of the discussions that I know that Mr. McGee and I have had is for being able to provide the board options. So you heard the differential that Ms. Forsman spoke about. We're talking about $700,000 to $800,000 when you actually break it down. That would be one of the options for us to be able to make up the difference with year-end funds to be able to provide that equal bonus across the staff. As a reminder to our board and to our school community, you all know anytime we've given bonuses in the past, we've provided bonuses for everyone because we believe in being fair and equal because we have so many folks that work hard here in the school division. So that would be one of the options that we will try to bring to you all that you will see potentially at the end of April, since we believe and hope that the General Assembly will be done by then, and for you all to vote on in May. We will put as an option for your priority the difference amount that it would take for us to be able to provide that bonus to all staff.
Dr. Gordon, I have a couple questions for clarity, and maybe I'm misunderstanding. It sounds like what Board Member Brittingham was referring to in General Assembly is something that will apply this year, not to the 25-26 budget.
That's correct.
Okay, so what we're saying may happen for the 25-26 budget, we are anticipating, hopefully, that there may be additional funds that won't be directed towards a bonus.
That's correct.
Specifically. So just want to confirm, if there is additional funds, the priority is teacher raises, not across the board. We recognize with the additional funds probably being limited in scope, the priority would be to teacher raises specifically, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. And using the same percentages that Ms. Lingliff has spoke about, it is our plan, if we can get that funds there that we need, to give the teachers the 5 to 5.5%, and administrators, for example, will still remain at the 3 to 3.5%, which has been mandated.
So one final question. So if, for example, you said, they direct that it has to go to SOQ specific initiatives or positions, would it be possible then to look at the budget, and I'm so speaking outside of my vocabulary here, I don't even know. So if we are given extra money, but it has to go to an initiative, and that initiative is already covered in our budget book, would you then be able to go look at that initiative and then come back to us and say, we were going to pay for this ourselves, but now they're telling us we have to use this money for it, so now we're moving that money to raises for teachers?
Yes, and that rarely happens. I'll tell you why. If they bring down new initiatives, like was initially given out by the General Assembly, because we got a calculation tool on what the General Assembly approved. And what it showed was extra ELL teachers, so they specifically wanted us to fund more. And then the other thing they wanted us to do is to provide more money for special education. Now, they didn't tell us how it needed to be spent, but they told us it had to be special education. So, you know, those are the kinds of things that come down. They don't always tell you that you have to do this or that. What they tell you is they want more than you currently have. So you have to prove that you've done those things.
Thank you. Other questions by other board members?
Just a follow-up
Okay, Board
question.
Member Brittingham.
So we're looking at two separate things. We're looking at a 5% raise for teacher and a $1,000 bonus that the state is still looking at and trying to decide. And so currently in our budget, we are only budgeting for a 3.5% raise for teachers. How are we going to provide them both the 5%, 5.5%, and the SOQ bonus? I mean, that's the question. And not that the SOQ bonus would feed that 5%, but that we would budget that into our budget as it is, and then if that $1,000 bonus comes for the SOQ positions, then we look at how do we distribute that according to whatever the state mandates for us to do.
Yeah, you would have to, as a board, we would have to bring you the options, show you how much it costs, and let you tell us what you want us to do. Because if they do it in current fiscal year, then that affects our year end. So I would need to come to you and say, okay, we need to find this amount of money in order to provide this bonus in the current year. If they provide us more money for next year, that is what Dr. Gordon is talking about, going for raises for teachers, as long as it's not earmarked specifically for us to do something for L teachers or SPED or wherever they might decide. But anything that we do this year, any more money that they give us for current year has a long process to get through, which I'm not sure we'd be able to get through in the time frame that they currently have, which they had said June 1, because not only would this board have to say yes or no, or what you want to do and where would the extra money come from, but then we still have to go to the city council, get them to appropriate this extra money that's coming to us, come back to you, have you as a board approve that money and approve the addition to our budget, and then we would have to put that in the budget, key it, and pay it before June 1. So I'm not sure, depending on how fast the General Assembly moves, that all can happen within the fiscal year the way that they've done it. So that date may change from the General Assembly side if they continue to keep that in there.
Okay, I guess I'm confused now because I'm thinking that both this 5% is in the budget that we're voting on and the SOQ's bonus would be in the budget that we're voting on.
They have, neither one has the governor's signature. The governor sent the budget back
right.
to the General Assembly. So we have to go with the governor's proposed budget from December, which you've had the presentation on February 27th. We cannot make changes to that to add money that we don't have yet because the governor has yet to sign the budget. He sent it back. The General Assembly's coming back on the 2nd of April to consider it. And until they consider it and send it back to him, either they're going to override his decision or they're going to have to send it back to him for his signature. And then we'll know after that point whether or not we'll have any more money.
Okay, now I know where the confusion is. So looking at the current budget that we have, looking at the money that is inside that budget that we know that was proposed, finding the 5% inside of that budget for the teachers, along with waiting for the SOQ bonus to come later on, which would be above and beyond an additional. So looking at our current budget, where inside of our current budget that we know that we have, would we find that 5% or 5.5% that we could put into the budget now? I guess is the question that I have, and the question that I know Board Member Slingloff and Vice Chair McGee had asked, looking at what was presented to us in February, where in there can we allocate right now? Where do we have to pull it from? Where is it in the budget now before we wait for any additional money that comes from the governor?
I think that, as Dr. Gordon said, the suggestion had been purchase services. If you pull it from purchase services, you're going to directly affect children because what's in there is virtual Virginia, so that's classes for children. What's in there is speech language interpreters, speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists that we have to contract out because we cannot hire them. We have been unable to get them to come on staff. We're not alone. All school divisions are having that same issue. All of that's in purchase services. The big items in purchase services are the sinkholes, which the city gives us $1 million towards, but as you saw, we spent $1.9 million the year that I gave you, which is the prior year. This year, we currently have $1.2 million of sinkholes that are still waiting to be filled. We have caution tape around it. We can't fill them. We don't have the money. If you start taking apart purchase services, which I understand was the suggestion, you will directly affect children. There's no way not to. Pest control directly affects children in the classroom. Roof repairs directly affects children in the classroom. The HVAC system maintenance money directly affects children in the classroom. The money that we pay the city to pick up the trash directly affects children because we'd have to have a way to get rid of the trash in the school. So there is not a lot of wiggle room in there for that kind of stuff in the purchase services. I don't know where you would take it because that's $2.4 million plus that you would have to come up with in addition to what we currently have in this budget, and I don't see anywhere you can take that is not going to directly affect children.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
And so that's part of, and maybe I didn't do a good job of explaining that, because this is the reason why we're saying that with the General Assembly going back on April 2nd, we have two deadlines that we are looking at here. We have to be able to submit this budget to the city by April 1st, because what we're asking for the city is independent of what we're asking for from the state. That's part of the timeline that, Ms. Forsman has kind of explained and had public since we started this process late August, early September. Part of the reason why Ms. Forsman says that we can't do anything yet to adjust based on the needs or requests of board members is because the budget isn't final yet from the state. We have to be extremely cautious here. This is the reason why Ms. Forsman said it all defers back to the governor's proposed budget until the General Assembly gets a chance to look at it. Now, what we're telling you is that we believe that there will be some additional funds coming from the state. What we don't know is specifically how much, and part two, if there are any strings attached to it. So whatever additional funds that we do receive from the state, that will go towards the teacher raises that we're talking about, the ELL teachers, the unfunded needs that we have on there. So I don't want any of our board members to believe that we're not taking your requests seriously. But part of the reasons why some of those questions came in and we wanted to provide you all with the purchase services detailed breakdown is to talk about those big rock items that we mentioned: roof repairs, athletic trainers, Orkin, HVAC repairs, special transportation, SROs, and the reminder that in the past we have used year-end funds to be able to take care of the repairs since we do not have $3.575 million for preventative maintenance because we had to use that money for the Northern Shores expansion. So anything, and for the board members that have been, with us for a while, they know anything that we have brought to you all in May is always to cover the things that we can no longer do with preventative maintenance. So the timeline is always going to be very specific because we have to be able to send this budget to the city because then they have their window, right? It'll be the focus of our joint meeting that we're having on April 9th. Probably more questions will come from that. And then we are circling that date of May 7th when the city meets, and that's when we'll find out that they're going to give us the full $82.3 million. Then luckily we have a school board meeting the next day of May 8th, as long as Wendy's team doesn't have to work too long to get it done, that we can bring you all the adoption. And then as soon as that adoption occurs, then we can issue contracts. And we have a, holiday weekend in there and those types of things. So that this way we can have the bonus coming through if it's still going to stay in there. And we can hopefully try to use that a little bit for retention if we can. But we can try to have as many things done by May 31st. This way, the last week of school, we have a great idea of what we need to focus on over the summer to fill any vacancies. So I just wanted to kind of reinforce that timeline and to let you all know, yes, we are going to give teachers additional funds. Let's see how much additional state money that we get, and then that will determine your request so that we all can make that. But we have to be able to hopefully move this budget forward, because our entire plan, 38% of it, is also banked on the city receiving this budget by April 1.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know we've unpacked the purchase services suggestion, but we still haven't unpacked the possibility of dues and subscriptions. And additionally, we just recently liquidated all kinds of money to the tune of $1 million for a renovation center. So my question is, we've got 101 positions that have not been filled. Is that potential money that could be used to give? Because, I mean, these positions get filled every year. And so if we're coming to the end of the school year and those positions haven't been filled, is there a potential that that money could be reallocated for this purpose so that we can go ahead right now and tell teachers, hey, we're going to go and give you that 5 or that 5.5% raise, so that we're hitting morale. We're showing them that they are important to us. We're putting them at the forefront and saying, we see you, we hear you. 3.5% doesn't even cover your COLA. We're going to push it to 5 or 5.5% right now, because we know we have the ability to do that.
Dr. Gordon, if I may, I think I know the answer to this one. We can't put like end of year money into salaries for next year for the same reason you said these one-time grants and one-time issuances are things we'd have to absorb the next year. And by taking that money from unfilled positions and trying to place it somewhere else, we're still going to be trying to fill those 101 positions next year. So that money won't be there next year for that raise. Am I close?
You want to add some of that, Ms. Forsman?
I just wanted to say that one-time money versus money for next year, you cannot carry funds forward without the express approval of the city. And so, as Ms. Howe said, if we're going to fill those positions next year, or even try to fill those positions, if we take that money out of the budget, you won't have it next year. I want to be careful with the unfilled part, because for every teacher position out there that there's a vacancy in, there is a long-term sub being paid out of that same line. So it's not technically vacant. There is someone being paid out of that line. Now, albeit it may not be exactly the same salary dollars, but it is still someone being paid out of that line. So we got to be very careful to say vacant, because they're not technically vacant. They're filled with a person who is earning money out of there. And in a situation where someone's on FMLA or on long-term leave, and they have leave on the books that they're allowed to take, we're paying that leave and a sub. If they're on short-term disability through the hybrid program, we're paying that short-term disability and a sub. So it's not as cut and dry as you made it sound, because it really is someone's there in that position getting money in that same line.
So all 101 of those positions are currently being filled by a long-term sub?
Everyone that I'm aware of that I see every week on the staffing report says there's a long-term sub in there.
We either have a long-term sub. We also have TAs that are in the I-Teach program. As you already know, we've also started our associate teacher program. Some people are going through that extremely fast. And one of the things that, I just want to piggyback on what Ms. Forsman said, we have to budget as if we will have a 100% fill rate at whatever the next step is for whoever's in that current position. When you had made the mention of us finding the $1 million to renovate the Innovation Center, that normally would have been $1 million that we would have used in year-end funding. But if you remember, we had to move it up because of the timeline from the contractors to make sure that we can get the work done. So part of the things that I had mentioned last month was we had a principal last year that was in her 35th year that retired, right? But she retired after the budget was built. That principal was then replaced with someone who's in their first year. So that's why you saw like the salary and benefits line is different, because their salary ranges are different. In Ms. Forsman's office, we had a position that was vacated by a director. We reconfigured her office, changed that position to a coordinator. That's a huge difference in the pay scale. So one of the things that we always have to make sure to be planned for is every position that we have, the next step that's on our salary scale. Also, in case people want to be able to change their benefit package from single to family. This is the reason why we really tried to reinforce last month, Dr. Brittingham, that we were pulling this from salary and benefit nines, not the resources that actually are impacting the schools. And one of the things I think that Ms. Forsman said is key, and I'm glad she said that, is those same lines that were used to pay long-term subs, which, as you know, are being paid less than our teachers. So there's a difference there. We also have a current principal vacancy. There's savings there. I mean, she had to be extremely creative, but that's also $1 million less than what we normally would have had at year end to take care of some of those major projects that we bring you all every year. Putting like the playgrounds that we put in at Kilby Shores Elementary School, both 3 through 5 and special education, the roof work. You heard us specifically mention one of the things you all will see at the end of April is painting Kings Fork High School. Some other HVAC replacement work we need to do. Now we're $1 million less, but we're still going to bring you some things. So when the budget is being planned, we all know we can't go in the red, right? There will always be money left over. And when you all vote and decide how we should spend that money, we do that in May. It then goes to the city. Once the city's into their new fiscal year in July, we then go to the city council meeting where they are hearing our reappropriation of funds, where we have the letter and ask them to give us the money back to do the things that the board has voted on to do. So that's kind of really the process over the next 3 months that we handle every year.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
may I just ask a quick question? When it comes to teacher raises, if we get the money to increase the teachers' raises, does that apply for licensed teachers, long-term subs, across the board, anybody who's teaching in the classroom? Can you explain that to me?
Not long-term subs unless we specifically do that rate separately. What this applies to is everyone who is on the teacher scale. That includes your media specialist, your school counselors, your teachers, your licensed teachers, and also your licensed professionals, diagnosticians, nurses, all the professionals that are in professional 1 and 2, because those scales feed off of the teacher scale.
Because that's, I mean, I appreciate the raise for everyone, but those are specifically the ones, the licensed teachers, that I'm most concerned about trying to retain. I also believe that incentivizes or could incentivize long-term subs to consider the iTeach program if they're hesitant. I think anything we can do that would entice them more to pursue the licensure is a benefit. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, we agree with you, Ms. Linglove. The raise is for those licensed folks, but we all have to have a 3 to 3.5% based on state code. And currently, let's knock on wood, our long-term sub rate is still the highest in the region. And we did that on purpose because of the need. We wanted to be able to outbid everyone else. So we do not have any plans to increase that rate since we are currently the highest.
Madam Chair,
Vice Chair McGee.
I would like to bring to the board's attention the email we all received, I believe yesterday, from one of our SPS employees regarding the elimination of attendance liaison position. Dr. Gordon, can your staff provide any data that would help the board understand? I understand these positions were grant-funded position, but is there data supporting the need for these? And if so, is this something we can absorb in our budget so these 5 individuals can keep their job?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So that's a 2-part question, Mr. McGee. So a part of our attendance plan, attendance liaisons were a piece of it, but they weren't the solely thing that we were doing. We still had work that was coming out of Dr. Brown's office. We still had our graduation coaches. We still had our clerical staff. Dr. Brown's team also did home visits. As you saw in my email and in the email that the board had received, all of our attendance liaisons knew that their funding was tied to the All-In grant. And that was reminded by the HR department several times throughout the entire 2 years, as well as a reminder in December, and then we had the individual meetings with those employees, just to let them know that effective June 30th. Now, as a part of that meeting, it was also made clear that those attendance liaisons were strongly encouraged to apply for any other vacancies that they saw here with SPS, because we would like to be able to retain them in some of the other vacancies that we have. And the HR department was also going to be the direct link between whatever vacancy they were interested in and those principals. The last part of your question, if we will be able to absorb it, not 100% sure, because that's also going to depend on that state funds. As at this point, we did not put that into the budget because it was grant funded, and that was clearly communicated for the entire 2 years that those positions have. So if we have enough funds that come back from the state, if that's something the board wants to do, we don't have a problem looking at that. But I wish I could give you a clear-cut answer at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Follow-up. Did we have any data to support the, pros and cons of keeping those positions? Like, I would like to know, as a board member, is this something that we might want to vote on? And second, do we have the cost for 5 positions, for annual cost?
So again, if you take a look at our Attendance Matters entire platform, it is not just the attendance liaison position. So I can't specifically tell you that because we had that position, that's the reason why John Yates Middle School consistently has 96% attendance. What I can tell you is because of the awareness, because of our school messenger system, because of the attendance liaisons, because of the home visits from Dr. Brown's team, all 4 to 5 supports that we put in place, that is the reason why those schools have high attendance. The All-In Grant was very specific when it came to fighting chronic absenteeism. And this board has heard me say several times, we are always hesitant to use grant funding for employees because of this discussion that we're having right here, especially if it's going to be multi-year. So we will be able to come back to you all and let you know what that total amount is, because some of it is based on their years of experience they've had with other positions. We've had people that are making as little as 15, some people making as high as 50. Without trying to get into too many details, because we're only talking about 5 people. So Ms. Forsman and Dr. Avery will be able to provide the total to you all. We can make that a part of our discussion once we get the final numbers from the state.
Thank you, sir.
Other questions to enable your vote tonight? There being none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second. The motion has been made by Board Member Riddick to approve the resolution 2024/25-23 and seconded by Board Member Jenkins. We're ready to vote.
Board members, please vote. Board Member Dr. Brittingham.
No.
Board Member Fields.
Yes.
Board Member Jenkins.
Yes.
Board Member Riddick.
Yes.
Board Member Slinglove.
Yes.
Vice Chair McGee.
Yes.
Board Chair Howell.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. The final objective for tonight is the discussion regarding spending from school board budget line items, and I'm going to defer to Board Member Riddick since he requested that addition.
Thank you, Chair Howe. I just have a couple of questions regarding with it, but I'm going to keep my answer very brief. I understand the importance of, upgrading the technology and equipment used at our school board meetings and to ensure that we have a smooth operation, enhanced transparency for our citizens. However, I have some concerns that I would like the board to address, particularly regarding the process for replacing technology and equipment. I want to know, do we have a replacement schedule for items owned and maintained by the Suffolk City School Board? Because within the last 30 days, we have had 2 requests that has come to the board in a short window of opportunity. One giving us less than 12 hours to make a decision before we had an expenditure, and then one being given to us tonight. I'm not in opposition of making changes, but I want to make sure that we are being strategic about how these changes and when they come about.
Address your first question, I think the replacement cycle, I would have to probably defer to Mr. Napier or to Ms. Forsman, but I also think that Attorney Waller has a piece in this discussion as well for how these decisions are made. And the guidance I've received is that it's the duty of the chair to make that decision and inform the board. That's why there was such short notice, because as soon as it was brought to my attention, I asked for guidance in how do I handle this request. I received the guidance, I executed, and then informed you all as I was directed. So for example, today, I got the email about the necessary equipment after lunch, because that is when our clerk got the notice. And so I asked the attorney, do I email the board or just speak to them tonight, since we'll see each other tonight? And he said either was appropriate. And that's why that went down the way that it did. So I kind of want to have the attorney speak to the process by which this has been occurring, and then I have to defer to Dr. Gordon and his team for if we have a replacement cycle.
The equipment that has become an issue both tonight and prior to all pertains to equipment for the operation of the meetings. And the chair is responsible for the orderly process of your meetings. And so because of that, she has the authority to do whatever is necessary in order to ensure the proper functioning of your meetings. And what she did was to poll the board members to find out what your position would be on purchasing this equipment. It is my understanding that the line item for equipment purchases is not earmarked for any particular thing. My understanding is that it's just money that is in total in your line item. It would be different if that money had been budgeted for specific projects, but my understanding is that is not the case. And so this is money that was needed to purchase equipment that would help facilitate your monthly meetings, and the chair is responsible for that.
Madam Chair.
Do you want to hear from Dr. Gordon about a replacement cycle, or you want to address that?
I want to address that first, because I don't want to lose my point. In an email that was sent on Friday, January 31st, it was expressly stated that, furthermore, the school board policy section 2-1.3 states that in cases where actions must be taken by Suffolk Public Schools and the school board has provided no guidance, the administrative action, the superintendent has the power to act. Currently, there is no policy in place that addresses who have the authority to direct the purchase of equipment for use at the school board meetings, which differs from, what was just explained. What I want us to do is this was the issue in January, and it is the end of March. And from my research, since it's been brought to me, this item has not made it to the Policy Review Committee. So I see how we are reaching to add this as a duty of the chair. But there were other alternative routes we could have taken. For an example, instead of purchasing screens, we could have moved our seats from here to the floor and dropped that big one that's already on down. We used it at a meeting before. So my concern is not just who has the authority, it's the haste of fixing it with a replacement instead of let's see, hey, what is the actual needs and desires of the board? Do we want to buy an upgrade? Do we want to enhance what we got? Or do we just want to keep moving functionally? Because I understand we say we want to make sure the public have all the information at the time we get it. That could also be satisfied by passing out paper copies to everybody. It doesn't have to be on a screen. So there are many ways we could approach. I just want us to be strategic about it. So if this is something that can go to the policy review committee, so there's a formal policy on how we operate expenditures and replacements, that it's in stone and not us grabbing for straws, for the lack of better terms. Because some may view that that's not one of the purviews of the chair, that policy that was quoted or duty as far as maintaining the decorum and the smooth carrying out of the meeting, and not the technologies of equipment owned by the school division.
Okay, so just to summarize that, you're requesting that the PRC discusses a policy addressing how school board equipment is replaced?
Yes, or
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
As far as who has the authority to authorize board expenditures such as far as equipment items. I understand we did it by poll, and I want to be clear, and I want the record to say I'm not holding you or anyone else in malice or responsible for this. This is just something that stood out to me that I want to say, hey, let's address this because, you know, it was stated that there is no policy for it. Let's put a policy in place for it. Let's make sure that we're not throwing good money out the bad, that what we're putting out there, if we're going to buy new screens, that we got what we want. Maybe we needed bigger ones because we're in a bigger venue than some of the other places that we had held meetings at. Also in the email, it also addressed the condition of the equipment, but the condition of the equipment was not brought to the attention of the board until it became a problem. So those are concerns for me.
I understand. So Attorney Waller and the Policy Review Committee have heard your request to have this addressed. I think it has been helpful to them in the past if you submit some input as to what you think the policy should include before their next meeting, which will be the last Monday in April. Is that correct? Okay. So that's on record here that you're requesting this policy be addressed the last Monday in April. And just, and if anyone else has input as to what should be in a policy, I would suggest you send it to the committee chair, Board Member Slingluff, and the attorney. As for what happened in January, I just want to clarify, we didn't get information that these screens were in disrepair because in January, that was also when we decided we were going to meet here every month for our second meeting. So as a response to a change in our schedule, that need became evident in January. Go ahead.
But that's not what was articulated as far as the condition of our property. It was stated that one screen is being held up by tape on the leg and the other one has wavy vision. That has nothing to do with moving a meeting location to Kings Fort because we had meeting locations throughout the city. What I'm saying is, if it's our property, let's make sure one is properly maintained, stored, transported. And I realize our staff go above and beyond because I've seen them set up these rooms and I've seen them break it down, and it takes a lot of work. So I'm not undervaluing anyone's effort. What I am addressing is the care, the communication, and a cycle for replacement for our technology that we have, that we utilize in our meetings, whether here or at another location.
I would like, if Dr. Gordon has any information, to speak to the replacement cycle for us, because this stuff, you know, eventually will have wear and tear. And if we're looking to secure the process by which we approve these purchases, we also have to be able to anticipate when those needs will arise, and that will minimize the situations where it comes to our attention last minute.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your concern, Mr. Riddick. I'll be honest, I will have to get with Mr. Littlefield to come up with the cycle because it's, honestly, it's just based on wear and tear. This is our third meeting of this year, and as Madam Chair and Mr. Riddick both said, the decision was made in January. Thank you also to Mr. Terrence Shark for loaning us the stands, our video specialist, who does such great work and also assists in the back when we're having these meetings. But he actually needs those for some other things as well. So I can bring that information back to the board at the April 10th meeting. I would do it either as an email before that or as an informational item. But I do need to have my expert, the expert, John Littlefield, kind of come up with an idea of that. And a lot of times it's just going to be based on overall time.
Thank you. Any other discussion points at this point?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Riddick?
Thank you, Dr. Gordon, for the information, and also thank you to the excellent staff member who is allowing us to utilize his property. What I want to also ask of Dr. Gordon and his staff is that come back with a recommendation. Is it time for us to get rid of them now? Because if we had it for 5 years, is there a better system that could be better? I was looking at the YouTube pixelation and things during the meeting. Is it something else better out here? Not just, maintaining what we got, but is it time for an upgrade? We change our computers. We change our cars. That's what I'm going at. If we're going to spend money, let's make sure we got the best. So when our citizens look at us various times, they can see, they can hear. They don't have to worry about things going in and out. That's all I'm asking.
Understood. Any further comments? Okay, I think that matter has technically been handled, unless there's anyone else. So we have no public speakers on non-agenda topics. That moves us into board member comments, and I will rotate from left to right, excluding Vice Chair McGee and I. And I just want to point out, it is 7:46, and I really think that our staff would appreciate if we met our mark of 8 p.m. So if you all have your comments to share and you can be encouraging and concise, I will start with Board Member Fields.
I would like to say that I am just delighted that we were, as a board, able to come to a consensus for our budget. That just thrills me. I'm really happy about that. I had my comments written down here, and I'm trying to, there they are. Okay, I would like to say as well that I'd like to express my delight again about the good news report being returned to our agenda. And it was put in a place that would accommodate the schedules of parents who already have a lot on their plates, I'm sure, but are here to celebrate their children's accomplishments. And it was put in a place where the students who have to go home and complete homework and get prepared for tomorrow's school day could be here to as well share in celebrating their accomplishments. It's refreshing to me again that the board is able to focus on student achievement and highlighting Suffolk Public Schools, one of our goals, one of our missions, which is to highlight producing 21st century learners that will become productive citizens in society. I want to congratulate or commend those students who were recognized for their accomplishments. And I don't want to call their names because I'm sure I'll miss somebody, and I don't want to do that, but it's a really good thing. It's a high honor for them, and I'm glad to be able to celebrate in that. Also, I'd like to acknowledge that I really appreciate I like to appreciate those students, those constituents who I spoke with during the interim between meetings. Speaking with constituents is typically my goal to ameliorate any apprehensions and be transparent regarding board norms and protocols and hear what's being said so that I can represent my constituents' voice in this forum. It's not my intent to debate or engage in any kind of hostile exchange with any constituents. I want to be their voice in this chamber, regardless of my opinions or my point of view. I look forward to our next meeting. I look forward to letting my community know that I am speaking for them. And I hope that I invite my constituents to come to this meeting so that they can share themselves, their point of view, so that they can let their voices be heard. So with that being said, I like to say that I'm looking forward to our next school board meeting. Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I don't think this was recognized at our last meeting, but Kings Fork High School debate team, they did an awesome job. They were in the paper, and I encourage you all to go back and look at what an awesome job they did on the debate team. I look forward to seeing our honor graduates highlighted in our next upcoming meetings. And I spoke with our chair about bringing back our students to show off their talents. That was one of the things that me and Ms. Board Member Riddick, we love inviting our students to sing or show off whatever talents that they had and gifts that they had. It is my hope that when we present our budget to City Council and the Mayor, Mike Duman, that they see the urgency and the seriousness of funding for our SROs. Just this week, I think one of our neighboring districts had an intruder in their school. And so we don't want to take it lightly. This is just not, oh, let's find the funds to do it. We really need security in all of our schools to keep our students, your children safe, as well as our staff. So hopefully they will find a way, and I appreciate Mr. Vice Chair McGee saying that they're looking to maybe support or fund 4 of our, but we need 11. Is that correct? We need 11. So, and knowing now that we pretty much are the only district that get money from the city and then we have to pay them, that was really interesting, and I don't think many people knew that. So now that we know that, let's see what we can do about it. But again, I appreciate whatever the City Council and the Mayor will do. And I want to thank everyone and the staff, of course, Dr. Gordon, for your hard work, our attorney, who is always on point, and our staff, support staff. Thank you so much for everything you do, and have a very safe week, and I look forward to spring break.
Thank you, Board Member Brittingham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to congratulate the students that were highlighted tonight and for their athletic endeavors, and just really grateful that they are being successful in the areas that they are athletes, and to our students that are striving academically. I know that it's the end of March going to April. We only have a few more months, and you just need to keep working hard. A couple of things about the budget tonight that I wanted to just talk about. One being that 5% raise for the teachers is something that many of the board members up here are very serious about, and we are looking to provide that to the teachers. The SOQ bonus is above and beyond that. I look forward to the General Assembly also providing that, but within our own budget, I think that we should be funding that 5% or 5.5% raise for teachers. The other thing that I requested, and this wasn't even talked about tonight, is having the funding available for more walkies in the schools for the teachers. You know, specifically after the incident with Kilby Shores, we want to make sure that school safety is on the top of our list. And so, you know, providing 20 to 25 walkies in each of our schools would go a long way to securing a little bit more safety, particularly for the teachers and the staff. And then finally, I just want to say I'm grateful for all the conversation that was had here tonight. I think a lot of it was productive, and I think the public got to hear a lot of what we are thinking about and where our positions and our minds and our hearts are at. And just know that I will continue to fight for my students and educators, parents, anybody in Suffolk Public Schools. You know, I want to be a voice for you. And so with that, I will say good night.
Thank you. Board Member Riddick.
I'm going to keep mine short and straight to the point. It's been a great meeting, very insightful questions, and great dialogue between board members and staff. Thank you, Dr. Gordon, and all your staff who are going above and beyond answering tough questions, as you always do, being able to provide timely feedback. Ms. Forsman, I definitely appreciate you and all that you're doing. I know we're doing a lot of working together with the Finance Committee. It's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that people don't really see in their day-to-day as citizens. But we just want to say that we are working tirelessly to make sure SPS continue to thrive and soar. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Board Member Slingla.
Can I just say ditto and close there? I just want to thank Ms. Forsman and Dr. Gordon and your team for all the laborious work that you put into this budget. I know that it is extensive. From our purview, trying to look at it and devour and understand it, it almost seems impossible at times. So it's a little bit of chiseling, and this is the third go-round for a few of us. A little more chiseling, trying to understand it. I also want to thank Dr. Gordon for some of the reports that were released and also placed on the website for access. I'm grateful for those reports. I want to challenge all of my fellow colleagues on the board, and this is a challenge also to myself just because we have gotten to this point in the budget season. There's so much information there that we've had only so much time to really take a look at. I think it's important that we continue looking at it to gain more understanding, to have more perspective. This conversation shouldn't end tonight or in a couple of weeks when we adopt the final budget after the governor's money comes in. But this conversation should be ongoing, and we should start the conversation now for next year's budget, thinking through what it is that we want to see for next year. And I know that talking with Chair Howell, you know, that ties right into this strategic plan and our goals for the strategic plan. So I just want to encourage everyone, it's not done because we got to this point. So don't rest. Let's take a look at the information we have. Let's dialogue and continue studying it and digging deeper so that we can be more knowledgeable and hopefully next year when we enter budget season be all the more wiser for it. So thank you, everybody, and I hope everyone has a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Vice Chair McGee.
Hey, thanks, Board Chair Harrell. Just want to give a shout out real fast to Coach Deanna Keys, Lakeland JV softball team for laying a whooping on Kings Fork tonight, 23-8. So go Lakeland. Second thing I want to talk about, hey, I'm glad we approved the budget. This was my first budget season, but we have a lot of room to improve. I feel like there's a culture here when you ask questions for transparency. And just so everybody's aware, the budget by state code, we own the budget. The school board is responsible for adopting the budget. So I take that, I don't take it lightly. And I ran a campaign on transparency and accountability. So when I'm presented a budget on February 27th of $250 million, and, you know, I'm roughly given 2 weeks to answer any questions and then an extra week to make any changes, I feel like we can do better there. There's room for growth. One suggestion I want to make to this board tonight is I would like to see our budget, a rough draft of the budget presented to us in January. We need to scrutinize it more. I thank Dr. Gordon for providing a lot of answers to questions that I did ask, But one thing that, I think we need to do better when it comes to purchase services, our service contracts, and subscriptions, those should be readily available on a robust system for the board to have an understanding anytime that it's requested. Being told that it would take several weeks to gather that information, that's unacceptable. It's 2025, and if our finance team needs to upgrade their systems, I really encourage this board that that's something we need to make a priority, because it shouldn't take anyone 3 weeks to provide a running track of active contracts, subscriptions, and where our money's going to those subscriptions. That should be in a living document readily available. So I'm glad we got it passed. Second thing I want to address was a current event that was brought to light this week by Wavy News 10. It was aired this past Monday. The report detailed how a 5-year-old student, Suffolk Public School student, was dropped off at a bus stop 2.5 miles away from her normal stop and without being released to her parent. This article was incredibly disappointing to read. First and foremost, I am thankful that the child was not harmed and made it back to her family safely. This situation could have ended in a tragedy, and we are fortunate that it did not, but we should not lessen the seriousness of what happened. What's equally disturbing is the reported response from an administrator here at SPS, who allegedly tried to justify the failure of following protocol by calling it an inconvenience. Let's be clear, student safety is never an inconvenience. I have 5 children in public schools. I don't take this lightly. Protocols exist for a reason. They're there to protect our children, and they must be followed every single time. What disappoints me more or most, however, is the lack of transparency. We didn't hear about this as a board until it was released through the newspaper or Wavy 10. That's concerning because, according to the article, an administrator spoke on our protocols regarding this. So there was an awareness at SPS of this event. Now, we did receive an email from the superintendent Tuesday saying he had no idea of the event, and he just was made aware of it. That's just as equally concerning, that something of this magnitude didn't make it to his plate until 13 days after the event. That's a failure within our system that needs to be addressed. Madam Chair, I respectfully request that we direct the superintendent to provide the full school board with a comprehensive report on all bus-related incidents and parent complaints involving children being dropped off at the wrong location. This report should include a detailed accounting of all known incidents, how and when each was reported, what investigations were conducted, what findings have been made, and most importantly, a thorough plan of action to ensure these types of failures never happen again. Our children's safety must always come first, and we must be proactive, transparent, and unwavering in our commitment to protecting them. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair McGee. I wanted to share something on behalf of Board Member Jenkins that she forgot to say, and that's all I'm using my time for. She is hopeful that our 5 attendance liaisons will apply to other vacancies and will be given that opportunity to fill those vacancies as loyal SPS employees. And with that, I yield my time back to the public and our staff, and this meeting is adjourned.